Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to the Silent Hill commentary, where the darkness, it's getting dark again. Oh, things are getting scary. Time to turn on the light. And yes, indeedy. Yes, darkness is falling over this somber little town, even though just a few hours earlier, it was bright and, well, I mean, okay, it wasn't really safe, but I mean, it was relatively okay, but yeah, I mean, it's just subtle little motions like this that do a lot to to amplify the tension and just sort of, again, not necessarily ratchet up the tension from, calming, ambience to, well, completely shit your pants scary, oh my god, as any lesser horror game would do. Yeah, Silent Hill just knows exactly what to do to just, play at your nerves, sort of gently massage you into, well, yeah, a bit of a moment of tense, oh shit, I better be on my guard. You know, it's that sort of thing that really does, pay dividends to making this horror game feel, like a gradual escalation of tension, all while keeping the horror consistent without, well, I mean, if you'll pardon the vulgar metaphor, without completely blowing its load right out of the gate. Because a lot of games have a tendency to think, oh no, the player isn't going to be frightened by, gradual build-up. We're gonna go whole hog with the, the jump scares, or, the scare chords, or with graphic imagery. But no, you'd be quite surprised at how effective it is in gradually building this up. And this is, admittedly, something that I have kind of learned myself from attempting to make, like, horror storyline videos throughout the reviews over many years, but yeah, I found that on rewatch, like, a lot of the things that tend to pay off a little bit more is the gradual escalation of tension, and how you build it up, which is what, gets people paying attention, and when you do eventually get the payoff, it's masterful. Like that area right here. I think we might be, looking at that little gated-off sewage area, sometime later. I don't know, I call it a hunch. But yeah, I mean, you can still technically explore this area and find some supplies, but you don't really want to, because, again, as is typical with the fear of the unknown, darkness is scary, so you're thinking, fuck it, get to the school, avoid all the dangers, and I'll be safe. I hope. And Cheryl will be there. But yeah, once you enter the school, you cannot leave. Which actually kind of reminds me of this really old Silent Hill Flash game that I remember from years back, where you were trapped in the bathroom and died via a jump scare, which was actually a rather effective bit of horror. I think it might be available on YouTube somewhere, but yeah, that's just taking me back to a time long since past. But anyway, this is Midwich Elementary School. Designed after the, the elementary school from, what was it, Kindergarten Cop, I think? So, yeah, I mean, bear in mind, this was 1999, so, I mean, there was no, unless, of course, you were doing location scouting, akin to what, Sonic Team did with Sonic Adventure, with, the Mayan pyramids. Yeah, all Team Silent had to rely on was either, stock photographs, or what they saw in movies. Oh, and by the way, you might notice the teachers list right there. Ronaldo, Moore, Gordon. Yes. Seems that the school's staff is also taught by Sonic Youth. In the meantime, though, pay attention to this. The time, and indeed the hints, in very esoteric Resident Evil fashion, are indeed meant to indicate what you're meant to be doing. And listing the times is also quite apropos, because, yeah, you got different tasks to do, but you also have a very linear way in which to do them, and you have to do them in order, because again, it pretty much starts from 10, then 12, then 5. Alchemy Laboratory. Gold in an old man's palm. Ah, the sage is water, my darling. But yeah, in the meantime, however, to kind of dissect how Silent Hill's levels are sort of created, again, you do have a general overworld sort of setting, which again is the town of Silent Hill itself, but you also have, I guess to put it in traditional video game terms, what is ostensibly a dungeon. So again, the way in which a lot of locations, such as the school for instance, is going to lay itself out is that you have a lot of supplies, you pretty much gather around. It sort of plays out like a weird mixture in between, well, as is typical, the dungeon setting in an RPG where you explore around, fight monsters, and, well, collect treasures, so to speak, which is pretty much items in order to progress throughout the game. But it's also treated in a similar vein to, well, again, your typical mansion setting, police station, or whatever from, your typical survival horror game, where, again, you pretty much mark out your lay of the land, use your map to mark off specific locations to visit, places of interest, puzzles to solve, that kind of thing. So, again, there's a lot of game design history for Team Silent to pull upon, and from what they get out of it, is actually a very efficient and tightly designed set of levels. But after a quick save of the game... by the way, you might not notice it behind slot 1, but there is actually some Japanese text behind there, so, tut-tut, Team Silent. Dummy telephone not use. I don't think anybody's gonna get one. Well, I mean, unless I saw the Silent Hill 1 review idea where I use that screenshot, but, it's neither here nor there in this case. In any case, both the front doors are locked. There's no way we can go through. But it's here, however, where we're introduced to our old friends. And here where the music really begins to fucking chill me out. Once again, massive credits to Akira Yamaoka's sound design, because holy fucking shit, that... Ugh. And I mean, it carries with the level throughout the entire place, so, yeah, dynamic music. It's scary, but it's apropos here to talk about two things, really. Well, okay, three things, since I know what's coming in beside this little door. The first of which being a new... Well, not even necessarily a new enemy, just a monster. The Larval Stalker. There is a bit of history behind it that I probably will elucidate at a later time, but yeah, the Larval Stalkers are non-hostile. They're pretty much just... you know, saddened little creatures that just sort of waddle around and occasionally fall over before disappearing. They trigger your radio static, but that's just because they are not of this earth. Like the Mumblers. I mentioned beforehand that in the NTSC version that they were replaced... Well, the Grey Children were pretty much one of the initial enemy sets for this part of the level, but... yeah, apparently a lot of people took umbrage with murdering childlike enemies in video games, and despite the fact that the American version did redesign the Grey Children to be, well... Grey Children, and to look a little bit more monstrous as opposed to being less childlike. Yeah, apparently that didn't really fly in Europe, so yeah, in PAL land and Australia, we pretty much got the Mumblers, which, again, do sort of fit the whole sort of child enemy kind of thing with very faceless apparel, so again, it does technically fit the whole apparel of, you know, a certain character being bullied by children with sharp barbs as much as they have sharp claws. But yeah, the Mumblers as a design are actually quite good, and as you saw beforehand in the courtyard, they do actually have some pretty unique AI and enemy tiles. Their first instinct is to technically grab you so that they can gradually drain your health. But again, as you saw, again, if there's two or more enemies on screen, they won't both grab you at the same time. One will pretty much pin you down, the other one will pretty much try and stab you. So again, there is some dynamic enemy patterns going about here, and as I mentioned before with the Air Screamer, where I finally remember the name even without having to look it up. My Silent Hill knowledge, it's returning. Yes, yes. Yeah, they've got some pretty dynamic AI reactions, but again, since these are still fairly early enemies, and crikey. Yeah, again, if you know what you're doing and you know how to maneuver around them, you can quite easily sidestep and, you know, choose to conserve your ammo by, you know, skating around them. It's just a factor of, you know, as mentioned beforehand, using a lot of common sense when trying to fight them. Yeah, I mean, they're up close and personal here, but I mean, again, if you're pretty much, you know, shooting wildly into the air, like, I already used the freedom-loving American joke, but, yeah, if you're pretty much shooting wildly, your shots become a lot less accurate, so, yeah, just, keep it sleazy, take it easy, and, don't be a hero. Kind of fitting for Harry, really, but, in any case, yeah, you pretty much go around the school, unlock doors, and, pretty much explore around the school. The areas that are obviously there to be explored are just, you know, it's keenly marked by, again, if Harry says, oh no, the door is jammed, you can't go there, don't bother with it, it's pretty much thing. Again, if a door says that it's locked, then you require a key item in order to pass. Either a key or puzzle items, fittingly. And as for anything else, again, if the door opens, then you pretty much have places to explore, or otherwise, well, it's just not an area that can be accessed. But don't be thinking that we won't be accessing some of these locations right now. It will be saved for later. But anyway, I suppose to talk about more gameplay terms, because I can't stop waxing nostalgic enough about it, is of course the radio mechanic. I did kind of mention this briefly, that it's used to detect monsters. You can technically turn this off, and I was initially going to say that it's a vastly different experience when you don't have it on, but the game pretty much provides it for you as a mandatory gameplay element anyway, much later on, but we'll save that for a much later point in time. In the meantime, though, it's really what I wanted to talk about was to do with how the radio functions. You notice how it has that, like, sort of... I mean, again, it's obviously meant to be static, but it has, like, a sort of ringing motif, like, it's trying to perceive into a signal, but it just, you know, kind of sounds like a vague siren kind of noise. Yeah, that pretty much indicates that one enemy's there, but again, if you see two or more enemies on screen, well, see them. No, if two or more enemies are in the vicinity, you know, the radio on top of broadcasting static will actually begin to crackle immensely. showcasing that there's more enemies on hand, and that you're basically gonna have to, well, pretty much kiss your ass goodbye and pray. Oh, dear, I've been there. School years, traumatizing. But keep that in mind, though, because, yeah, school is traumatizing for a lot of children, and, yeah. The less said about that, the better. But in the meantime, though, there is also melee combat in the game, as I meant. Well, I don't think I mentioned it beforehand, and I don't think I'm really showing it off, because, the pistol is my trusty weapon. Keeps me warm at night. Makes me feel confident like a freedom-loving American with my yeehaws and cowboy hats, even though I'm nowhere near freedom-loving American. But yeah, to talk about this specifically, we also have the butter knife, which I mentioned beforehand, but also the steel pipe, which is a much more preferable option to melee combat, because the trusty steel pipe, well, ensures that we're always keeping out of danger, but yeah, you pretty much have a one powerful overhead strike or two quick strikes based on the frequency of your button presses and readying the weapon by pressing the R2 button, which you also use for firearms. So yeah, it can be quite an efficient use of conserving ammo if you want to rely on melee combat, and again, the system is with enough depth and, you know, with enough fairness in combat so that you can outfox your enemy if you're good enough, but yeah, it's a bit of a last resort kind of thing, because Harry is not a swordsman, he's not a police officer, so you really gotta be careful. And to talk about puzzles right here, this is pretty much showcasing that you do have to do them in sequential order. This is pretty much what the puzzle was mentioning beforehand, you know, Doves of a Silver Tongue, awaken this at 12 o'clock. And despite not being locked, the piano was sealed. Yes, it seems some otherworldly powers are at play here. But again, that's pretty much just indicating that you gotta pretty much solve these puzzles in sequential order. Repeating myself, just like in the original commentary when I was less experienced. Well, the more things change, I suppose. I mean, I suppose I will list one difference between this and the original commentary. First of all, this scene is incredibly harrowing because it features a cat stuck in a locker, which I seem to recall was a shout-out to the Ryu Murakami novel, I think it was Coin Locker Babies, based on a rather dark Japanese practice where, you know, newborn, well, I guess new parents basically throw their infant lockers inside coin-operated lockers for them to eventually die. Well, could be worse. Not really, that's morbid, so moving on. On to more specific matters though, yeah, poor cat. But yeah, I mean, as I was mentioning beforehand with my previous tangent, and the old commentary, yeah, word of advice, because, again, if you're gonna watch the old commentary, there is a lot of, self-deprecation, part of which was because I was a fucking depressed teenager, and, you know, had about as much concern for my life as a chronically depressed lemming. Yeah, don't self-deprecate your own work while commentating, because it's not fun to listen to, as I learned on rewatch after, you know, taking in a few parts of the old commentary, and in turn, it's not very informative for the viewer, and it's just more, well, self-pitying, really, so don't do that if you're starting commentary. Just find things that are informative to say, either about the gameplay, or about trivia, or, you know, just some witty observations about what's going on around you. Again, you can point out stuff that's going on screen, but, you know, there needs to be a certain sense of information, a certain sense of, you know, enriching the viewer with stark witticisms and going, oh yes, yes, the Mumblers, the design-wise of the PlayStation doesn't do their design justice. They look like a bit of tomato sauce and fried gnocchi, which is an Italian dish enjoyed by the nobodies. Okay, maybe not something like that as pretentiously delivered, but you get what I'm saying here, really. Like, I mean, again, you can pretty much be the tee-hee funnies for commentary, but, you know, you also have to be funny, and, you know, sharp, observant, at least requiring a degree of wit and, you know, observational skills. It counts for a lot here, but in any case, now that we're pretty much free from the bullshit, and they're playing the fucking creepy music again. Oh, the library. Maybe we can find some books, curl up with a nice good book, and see what the commentary tangents we can talk about. No, 3 of them! And how fitting that they're hiding out in the library, which, I mean, well, I mean, they're not wrong about, you know, some very sheepish, shrinking violet creatures hiding out in the library, because the bullies, they takens your lunch money, and they're kinda frightenings. Yeah, no library reserve. And it's locked. There must be something hidden inside. But in any case, now we finally go inside here. The lab. And, I mean, I know Midwich Elementary School is meant to be a, you know, a science class, but, I don't know, I guess maybe this might be different in the American education system, but would they really trust young children with, you know, certain chemicals here? Because, as we're approaching here with, you know, the hand that's pretty much calcified and, you know, clasping over the gold medallion that we need, yeah, we'll pretty much need to get some, concentrated hydrochloric acid, which I'd imagine that there is a lot of supervision involved, but would they really trust children with, you know, chemicals like that? Because, I mean, thinking back to my school years, they didn't actually trust us with, you know, doing science with chemicals or whatever until high school, and even then, that was under, you know, very intense scrutiny, so, you know, you really had to sort of be careful. Anyone who was dicking around was, you know, pretty severely told to, you know, cut that shit out, otherwise you're gonna get fucked, and, yeah, like, I mean, we had stuff like, you know, eye wash stations and all that kind of thing, so I don't know, maybe it was a thing for the teachers to sort of showcase students just to teach them while they observe? I don't know. By the way, there is also some glucose and, you know, some distilled water in here, which actually kind of plays a funny element into well, a rumoured ending of Silent Hill that actually turned out to be complete bogus. Back in the days when internet rumours of Silent Hill were, well, you know, quite rampant. The two of which that really stuck out to me was the ambulance ending, which is, you know, what some of these elements tie into, and in turn, how James Sunderland's cameo in Metal Gear Solid 3. If you had Silent Hill 2 save data and you walked down the river where the Sorrow was. I mean, it was kind of the Wild West days of the internet back in those times, but I do kind of miss seeing, like, board theorems like that, especially when they had, like, a plausibility of truth. I mean, like, the Silent Hill 3 and Metal Gear Solid 3 wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility, because, I mean, well, there was Silent Hill 3 artwork in Metal Gear Solid 3 to begin with as well, and, you know, I mean, there was that rumor of James Sunderland showing up in the Sorrows area, which, you know, wouldn't have been too far out of the realm of possibility, given the, you know, amount of things you could alter within the confines of that game's story, like, you know, the bird pecking that soldier who eats them, and then Big Boss eats him. Cannibalism. Fun, fun, fun. But in any case, you might notice a clock tower outside in the courtyard. Well, that's where the medallions come in and why you need to solve these puzzles in sequential order. Use the gold medallion for the golden sun, it's gonna change the time to midday, and then you pretty much work your way from the puzzles then. You saw those three notes that indicated the times of 10, 12, and 5 PM. So our next destination will be, the music room, which is where the piano puzzle was, and you will notice that as we change the time, the piano will mysteriously be unlocked. Mysteriously be unlocked? Whatever. Anyway, saving time, and Harry Mason is teleporting, and now it is open. Blood. Well, I hope it is not Chris's blood. So yeah, that's pretty much our clue to indicate what we need to do, and yeah, refer to the puzzle of, you know, the bird puzzle, as it was written on the whiteboard. Don't worry, you don't need to have full-on knowledge of sheet music in order to understand what to do here. It's pretty much figuring out the keys which are silent, but, you know, fitting with silent birds that sing a song. You'll notice because, again, the keys that you're not meant to press, you know, make a sound, whereas the others do not. So it's pretty much just a matter of, you know, a dove falls silently, a pelican flies as far as it can, then another bird sits beside it, and then a raven crows, and then you know, a bird starts napping. What does this song mean? Well, it's pretty much just figuring out the puzzle, and, yeah, bada bing, you do the thing. And thus, Harry Mason is booed off stage for his poor piano playing skills. Oh, what he wouldn't give to have Rebecca Chambers here with him. And now that we have the silver medallion, the last part of the puzzle isn't really technically a puzzle. It's pretty much awakening the beast by, you know, churning the flames and stoking the choking heat. Which in this case is pretty much indicating you to go down to the boiler room and, well, turn on the boiler. So yeah, so that's pretty much all she wrote in this case. I guess maybe to talk about it while we're, pretty much making our daily commute back down to the courtyard, to discuss, the Grey Children in and of themselves. Yeah, they did actually have a bit of a design change from looking like as more childlike enemies towards what they were now, and in and of themselves, the larval stalkers, were also initially, textured. Like, again, they had the same sort of fleshy textures similar to, what the Mumblers have, looking like, some gnocchi you'd have at an Italian restaurant. But again, I suppose they were cut for a similar reason, even though I don't think the larval stalkers were meant to be hostile towards Harry, but, I don't know, I guess maybe Team Silent cut it just purely for safety reasons, but, yeah, I mean, it's quite odd, and, don't worry though, I mean, if you're worried that the larval stalkers are pretty much your breather enemy, well, later on in the game, as things begin to go a little bit more haywire, well, yeah, let's just say that they take a level in badassery. Or they finally start growing up. Or they were but wee babies, and then they finally learned to fight like real monsters. Oh, I'd be so proud of them if they weren't picking me brain stem out. Yeah, but yeah, that's also... But anyway, the main thing I just wanted to say was that the reason why the larval stalkers have no textures is because, well, Team Silent had some assets and they wanted to reuse it. Even though they had plenty of monsters that they easily could have reused, but that's something I'm pretty much saving for the bonus video, which, to kind of go into it, to kind of give the original commentary a little bit more relevance, as archaic as it is, I'm pretty much just only going to be doing like a one playthrough run. Again, you're not going to be seeing all the other endings from, whatever else. So the ending I get here is the one that you're going to see. And if you want to see the other endings, check the bonus video of the original commentary, just to give it a bit more relevance. And I suppose as for anything else, really, yeah, there is going to be a bonus video to this commentary, but it's not covering the endings so much as it is a certain facet that, again, I didn't know and, well, wasn't even publicly available back when I did the original commentary, and was pretty much a year out before I did the review as well, so, yeah. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a bit of an interesting dive as to, what we're seeing and what we won't be. But anyway, down into the basement. So yeah, to keep in mind though, again, you need to put in the silver medallion before accessing, certain things here, which is why you pretty much have to run back, because again, you can't activate the boiler until it's 5 o'clock. Why exactly that is, I have no idea. I mean, I suppose I'd be saving the bill on it for during winter, because I'd imagine that the power costs would probably skyrocket, and, schools can be pretty stingy about that. I remember many heated mornings, heated days throughout Australian summers and, primary school, there wasn't any fucking air conditioning like any of you fucking weans have today. It was, full on, you're sitting there under the fucking burning tin roofs and roasting in there. So anyway, a silver moon. I feel the change transforming me. Ooh, playing a bit recklessly here. So yeah, put on the silver moon, and now we head back down to the boiler. Freddy Krueger is waiting for Harry. Oh, be careful, Harry. Freddy is trademark coming. No doubt the Mumblers are his children. I mean, I think I brought this up in Resident Evil 0, but, the classic survival horror game, Nightmare on Elm Street. You already have a perfect working formula with Silent Hill here. I mean, it could have easily made a lot of money, but whatever, I guess. But anyway, I do want you to pay attention to, the boiler itself, particularly as we're entering it in, well, relatively normal settings inside the school here. Again, you see it as just, your bog standard boiler room, really. It appears to be broken. But yeah, you see a lot of gates, you see a lot of valves, and, again, you see some areas that are gated off. Just, a bit of food for thought as we eventually, well, see things a little bit later. Well, that's inviting. I'm sure the beast was purely metaphorical. There's nothing to worry about here. Boiler is activated. And yeah, valves. And gated off areas that seem quite frightening to the childlike mind. Whatever. I'm sure Cheryl's just waiting inside the clock tower. We can help a friend in need. Wub 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 wub. And we can pretty much just move on here. I do wonder where a lot of these posters were taken from, really. I think that might be original textures, and, I do actually have to wonder, though. I'm recalling something in Forbidden Siren where, a lot of the children's artwork and the Hanuta primary school that you can find, you know, throughout the levels in that game were actually designed by the game developers' children. Like, they actually had them, like, draw pictures of, like, you know, a dog or a wolf in Japanese kanji, and, you know, their parents put them in the game, which is actually quite sweet. So I have to wonder if, like, maybe the developers did something similar here, like a Naoto Sato, or... I don't know if Masahiro Ito was married or has kids, but maybe they might have done it, or maybe they just might have gotten some of the developers' friends. I don't know. Either way, it would have been... It must have been incredibly nice, like, to things like, you know, like your game developer parent was like, go on, son, draw some artwork and we'll put it in the new game I'm making. I mean, granted, they probably wouldn't have been allowed to play Silent Hill, but I mean, I can imagine years later thinking, huh, my artwork got into the game. It's kind of shit, but, you know, I had influence in Silent Hill in some small way. I mean, it's kind of like a game development stuff with big teams where they get to design, like, one texture, like that radiator over there. You know, it might have just been that one radiator, but goddammit, they contributed to the game. Even if uncredited. I mean, I suppose that is also something to kind of bring up as we begin to put this part to a close, in the sense that, yeah, Silent Hill, very well known in the West, not much so in Japan, actually, because, I mean, while it isn't quite as unpopular as something like, say, you know, what Sonic the Hedgehog would be in Japan, what Silent Hill is, you know, given its Western literature focus, is, well, again, bigger in the West than it is in Japan. So, yeah, for a lot of people crowing about Silent Hill being purely Japanese, well, it's not a very popular franchise over there, and that's probably why, you know, the recent Silent Hill F game is targeting towards Japanese audiences, because that's what they're familiar with. I would say that's fitting, but it's made by a Taiwanese studio. Well, on that note, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and as we enter the clock tower, soon shall things change.